Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Ankita Jain from DSPSR New Delhi. Today we are going to talk on module Layoff, Resignation, Dismissal or Discharge, Retrenchment and VRS from paper Human Resource Management. After completing this module, you should be able to understand employee separation is a sensitive issue for any organization. Usually, an employee leaves the organization after several years of service. Thus, the permanent separation of employee from an organization requires discretion, empathy, and a great deal of planning. An employee may be separated as consequence of resignation, removal, death, permanent incapacity, discharge, or retirement. The employee may also be separation due to the expiration of an employment contract or as part of downsizing of the workforce. Organizations should never harass the employees, especially in the case of resignation, just because they are quitting the organization. In fact, quitting employees of the organizations must be seen as a potential candidate of the future for the organization and also the brand ambassador of its HR policies and practices. However, many organizations are still treating their employees as expendable resource and discharging them in an unpleasant manner whenever they choose to do so. Each organization must have comprehensive separation policies and procedures to treat the departing employee equitably and ensure smooth transition for them. Further, each employee can provide a wealth of information to the organization at the time of separation. Exit interview can be conducted by the HR department to ascertain the views of the leaving employees about different aspects of organization, including the efficacy of its HR policies. Introduction. An employee separation occurs when an employee ceases to be a member of an organization. Termination of employment or of service broadly signifies the separation of any employee from an organization. Borwich Amaldio. Davis says a separation is a decision that an individual and the organization should part. The service agreement between the employee and the employer comes to an end and the employee decides to leave the organization. The above definitions, employee separation has following characteristics. First, procuring employee from the society for use in the organization is the first function. Separation is the return of those employees to that same society and it is the final function of HRM. Second, it can be a complex and challenging. Third, separation is either the action of the employee or the employer, bringing their relationship to end. Fourth, sometimes separation can be a traumatic event for the employee and the organization. Hence, it can and should be managed. Reason given for leaving must be analyzed carefully. Fifth, it may not be total elimination of employee. Sixth, it has costs as well as benefits. Separations can produce values to the organization. In addition, there are several reasons for separations. Some are: first, resignation or voluntary retirement of the employee. Second, non-renewal of the contract of employment on its expiry. Third, continued ill health or death. Fourth, redundancy or retrenchment. Fifth, punishment for serious misconduct by way of disciplinary action. Sixth, termination for moral turpitude, loss of confidence. Seventh, discharge of employees who do not meet the organization's expectation. And eighth, loss of production. Types of employee separation. Employee separation can be classified in the following ways. First, voluntary separations, and second, involuntary separation. Voluntary separations. Voluntary separations are initiated by the employee himself. These occurs when an employee decides for personal or professional reasons to end the relationship with the employer. The reason for voluntary separation may be employees obtaining a better job, second, changing career, job or firm, third, wanting more time for family or leisure activity, fourth, finding the present job unattractive because of poor working condition, fifth, bad relationship with a supervisor or officer, sixth, being unhappy with any aspect of the current job, and seventh, staffing mistakes. Eighth, poor match between the employees and his job, and so on, take their former employees to court for wrongful discharge. Voluntary separation can be either avoidable or unavoidable. Unavoidable voluntary separation results from an employee's life decisions that extend beyond an employer's control. There are two types of voluntary separation. First, quits, and second, voluntary retirement or resignation. W. H. Mobley says that the decision to quit depends on first, the employee's level of dissatisfaction with the job, second, the number of attractive alternatives the employees has outside the organization. The employee can be dissatisfied with the job itself, the job environment, or both. Voluntary retirement or resignation. Like a quit, a voluntary retirement is initiated by the employee. However, a retirement differs from a quit in a number of respects. First, a retirement usually occurs at the end of an employee's career. A quit can occur at any time. Second, retirement is initiated with the object of taking rest after long service. Quit is initiated in the early stage of one's career with the object to change jobs. Third, in case of retirement, an employee receives retirement benefits from the firm. People who quit do not receive these benefits. Fourth, the organization normally plans retirements in advance. HR staff can help employees plan their retirement, and managers can plan advance to replace retirees by grooming current employees or recruiting new ones. Quits are much more difficult to plan for. Voluntary retirement or resignation. An employee may decide to resign voluntarily on personal or professional grounds. Sometimes an employee may be forced to resign the firm compulsorily on the grounds of negligence of duty, insubordination, misuse of funds, etc. The resignation in these cases, unlike voluntary separation, is initiated by the employer. If the employer refuses to quit, he may have to face disciplinary action. When employees resign or quit an organization, the firm has to bear some cost. A. Disruption to the normal flow of work. B. Replacing an experienced and talented person may not be easy in short span of time. C. Training new recruits would take time. And D. It adds cost. Hence, the HR management should examine the factors behind resignation carefully. Exit interviews must also be conducted to find out the reasons for quit or resignation. There should be an attempt to listen to departees' views, opinions, critical remarks patiently and sympathetically. Voluntary retirement policies consist of two features. First, a package of financial incentives that make it attractive for senior employees to retire earlier than they had planned. And second, an open window that restricts eligibility to a fairly short period of time. Voluntary retirement policies can reduce the size of a company's workforce substantially. Managing early retirement policies requires careful design, implementation, and administration. When not properly managed, early retirement policies can cause a host of problems. Too many employees may take early retirement, the wrong employees may leave, and the employees may perceive that they are being forced to leave. In case of voluntary retirement, the normal retirement benefits are calculated and paid to all such employees who put in a minimum qualifying service. Many companies have started voluntary retirement schemes (VRS), which are called in golden handshake plans. Beginning in the early 1980s, companies both in public and private sectors have been sending home surplus labor for good. Workers are given freedom to opt this plan. VRS is considered as a time-saving method to reduce surplus staff. It is a painless, easy plan by which unproductive the old workers can be reduced. Involuntary separation. An involuntary separation occurs when management decides to terminate its relationship with employees due to first, economic necessity, and second, a poor fit between employee and the organization. Involuntary separation are the results of very serious and painful decisions that can have a profound effect on the entire organization, especially on the employee who loses his job. These are following types of involuntary separations which need proper consideration: mandatory retirement, discharge, dismissal or termination, layoff or downsizing, retrenchment or suspension. Mandatory retirement. Retirement has been characterized by some as a role-less job. With a society built on work ethic, it's a move from recognizable productive work role to a role-less role. Some people believe that retirement leads to mental and physical illness and sometimes premature death. But many studies have concluded that health declines are associated with age and not retirement. Many unskilled workers demonstrate a slight improvement in health after retirement. In other studies, no support has been found that retirement is detrimental to the health of older persons. Other research has emphasized the extent to which poor health actually includes workers to retire, thus making health the cause of retirement instead of an effect. Many managers are in favor of this view that compulsory retirement at fixed age for all is more beneficial. Among the reasons cited in favor are: first, it is simple to administer with the fixed age. Second, openings are created to which younger employees can advance. Third, human resource planning is facilitated when retirement schedules are known. Fourth, graceful exits are provided for employees who are no longer qualified. And fifth, it stimulates employees to make plans for retirement in advance of a known date. The arguments against any fixed compulsory retirement age are as follows. First, people have freedom to decide their retirement event. Utilization of all available talent is possible, and people age at different rates in terms of productivity, energy, creativity. Next, forced retirement would result in significant losses of real talents. And fifth and last, a fixed retirement age will often lead to employees' antagonism and resentment, as well as a short-timer attitude in the years just prior to retirement. Short-timers tend to be less entrusted and communicated to the organization's challenge and problems, and may even retire on the job. Edwin and Filippo. And finally, the organization is forced to do a more effective job of appraising employees' performance. Discharge, dismissal, and termination. In general, these are one and the same thing. Discharge is the most drastic disciplinary step the manager can take. Hence, special care is required to ensure that sufficient cause exists for it. Furthermore, discharge should occur only after all reasonable steps to rehabilitate or salvage the employee have failed. However, there are undoubtedly times and reasons when discharge or dismissal is required, perhaps at once. Dismissal is the termination of the services of an employee as punitive measure for some misconduct. Discharge also means termination of the services of an employee, but not necessary as a punishment. Discharge is serious because it impairs earnings and image of an employee. A discharge takes place when management decides that there is a poor fit between employee and the organization. The discharge is a result of either poor performance or the employee's failure to change some unacceptable behavior that management has tried repeatedly to correct. Sometimes employees engage in serious misconduct, such as theft or dishonesty, which may result in immediate termination. It is the most stressful and distasteful method of separation. Discharge makes the ex-employee ineligible for further employment in other organization. Grounds for discharge are as under: unsatisfactory performance due to excessive absenteeism, tardiness, a persistent failure to meet normal job requirement, and adverse attitude towards the company, supervisor, or fellow employees. Misconduct. It is a deliberate, the willful violation of the employer's rules and may include stealing and rowdy behavior. Lack of qualification for the job. It is an employee's inability to do the assigned work although he is diligent. Insubordination. Though a form of misconduct, insubordination is sometimes harder to translate into words. Acts of insubordination include, for instance, the following: direct disregard of the boss' authority, hat-out disobedience of the boss' orders, deliberate defiance of company's policy, rules, and procedures, public criticism of the boss, blatant disregard of reasonable instructions, contemptuous display of disrespect and making insolent comments, disregard for the chain of command, participation in an effort to undetermine and remove the boss from power. Other reasons: willful damage to company property, falsifying the application blank and work records, possession of narcotics and firearms, fighting on the job, theft and embezzlement of company property, inebriation and alcoholism, carelessness and inefficiency, violent and aggressive acts, unauthorized absence from duty for a long time. Layoffs. A layoff is a temporary separation of the employee from his employees at the instance of the latter without any prejudice to the former. Section 2 KKK of Industrial Disputes Act 1947 defines layoff as the failure, refusal, or inability of an employer to give employment to a worker whose name is present on the rolls but who has not been retrenched. A layoffs may be for definite period on the expiry of which the employee will be recalled by the employer for duty. It may extend to any length of time, with the result the employer is unable to estimate when he can recall his employees. The services of the employee are not utilized during the layoff periods. The employer-employee relationship, therefore, does not come to an end but is merely suspended during the period of layoffs. The purpose of layoff is to trim the extra fat and make the organization lean and competitive. A layoff differs from a discharge in this way. In a layoff, employees lose their earnings because a change in the company's environment or strategy forces it to reduce its workforce. Global competition, reductions in product demand, changing technologies that reduce the need for worker, and mergers and acquisitions are the primary factors behind most layoffs. In contrast, the actions of most discharged employees have usually been a direct cause for their separation. According to Section 25C of the Industrial Disputes Act 1947, a laid-off worker is entitled to compensation equal to 50% of the basic wages and dearness allowance that would have been payable to him had not been laid off. However, in order to claim this compensation, the laid-off workman must satisfy the following conditions. First, A. He should not be a badly or a casual worker. B. His name must appear on the muster rolls of the industrial establishment. C. He must have completed not less than 1 year of continuous services. And D. He must present himself for work at the appointed time during normal working hours at least once a day. The right to compensation is lost if the worker refuses to accept alternatives employment at a place within 5 miles of the establishment from which he has been laid off. No compensation is payable when the layoff is due to strike or slowing down of production on the part of workers in another part of the establishment. An industrial establishment of a seasonal character or in which work is performed only intermittently or which employs less than 50 workers is not required to pay the compensation. There are some golden rules from effectively managing layoffs, that is, plan, prepare ahead of time for downsizing, view human resources as assets rather than liabilities, assess skills, abilities, and knowledge of all employees to help improve HR decisions, identify the firm's future strategy and strategic imperatives, treat downsizing as providing a clear vision for the future, not just an escape from the past. Use HR planning practices that consider alternatives to layoff, set targets, deadlines, and objectives for downsizing. Implement downsizing by starting with small wins, that is, things that can be changed quickly and easily and that achieve the desired results. Focus on productivity improvement. Approach downsizing as an opportunity for overall improvement. Focus on attacking sources of organizational fat. Map and analyze all processes in organization to eliminate inefficiencies, redundancies, and non-value added activities. Measure all activities and processes, not just output, to identify how improvement can be made. Institute a variety of cost-cutting procedures, not just headcount reduction. Involve employees, which include the use of cross-level and cross-functional teams to identify what needs to change and how. Hold everyone, not just top management, responsible for achieving targets and goals. Involve customers and suppliers. Communicate. Ensure that leaders are visible, accessible, and interactive. Project positive energy and initiative from leaders. Ensure that every employee is informed about what is happening. Make clear, direct, and empathetic announcement of layoff decisions. Explain why retrenchment must occur if a clearly visible space code exists that does not implicate management and is easy to understand. Use it. Over communicate as layoffs proceed. Take care of those laid off. Give advance notification of layoffs. Provide safety nets for those who must leave, including severance pay, extended benefits, and outplacement assistance. Arrange collaboration between private and public sector organizations in providing services for those laid off. Take care of survivors. Implement layoffs in a fair and human manner. Develop trust between management and surviving employees. Manage the rumor mill effectively. Provide training, cross-training, and retraining in advance for survivors so that they will be able to handle the new demands. Do everything possible to maximize the retention of high performers. Change appraisal, reward, and pay system to match new goals and objectives. Further, there are some wrong impacts of layoff. That is, layoff can affect the morale of the organization's remaining employees who may fear losing their jobs in the future. It can affect a region's economic vitality. When layoff happen, the entire community may suffer. More than emotional impact, the financial impact on workers may be serious. Their incomes are impaired. Investors may interpret a layoff as a signal that the company is having serious problems. This, in turn, may lower the price of the company's stock on the stock market. It can change company's image. It can hurt a company's standing as a good place to work and makes it difficult to recruit highly skilled employees. The company may have difficulty in attracting talented engineers and professionals. Retrenchment. Retrenchment is the permanent termination of an employee's services due to economic reasons. Retrenchment differs from dismissal. An employee is dismissed because of his own fault, whereas retrenchment is forced by the employer. Moreover, retrenchment involves the termination of services of one or two employees. Retrenchment. Retrenchment is the permanent termination of an employee's services due to economic reasons. These include A. Replacement of labor by machines. B. Closure of a department due to continuing lack of demand for the products manufactured in that particular department. C. Closure of plant. D. Surplus staff. E. General economic slowdown, etc. It should be noted that termination of services on disciplinary grounds, illness, retirement, winding up of a business does not constitute retrenchment. So students, let's now summarize what we have learned in this module. First, every company should have proper policies relating to transfer and promotion. Demotion is reverse of promotion. Separation takes place in form of resignation, retirement, layoff, retrenchment, and dismissal, and death of employees. Thank you.